Hello everyone, I'm Annlanka JEYADHARSHINI, Assistant Professor of the Department of English. I'm here to present an analysis of the poem The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Before we go into the analysis, let us look into an introduction of the poet. Samuel Taylor Coleridge, more popularly known as S.T. Coleridge, was born in 1772 and he died in 1834. He was an English poet, literary critic, philosopher and theologian who was a founder of the Romantic movement in England, and he was also a member of the Lake Poets along with his friend William Wordsworth, with whom he co-founded the Romantic movement. He has shared volumes and collaborated with many other poets like Charles Lamb, Robert Southey, and Charles Lloyd. He has written many poems including The Rime of the Ancient Mariner and Kubla Khan, as well as the major prose work Biographia Literaria. He has coined many familiar words and phrases including a suspension of disbelief. He has also had a major influence on Ralph Waldo Emerson and American Transcendentalism. Throughout his adult life, we read that Coleridge had crippling bouts of anxiety and depression. So today he had what was then an unfamiliar disorder to the people. Today, had he been alive, he would have been diagnosed with having bipolar disorder. And he was physically an unhealthy person, which could have been a result of a bout of rheumatic fever and other childhood illnesses. So, for these uh, ailments, he was treated with laudanum, which led to a lifelong opium addiction. So he had a turbulent career and his personal life is filled with many highs and lows, but his public esteem grew posthumously and he is considered as one of the most influential figures in English literature. So now we come into this poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. So this poem is in 7 parts and it first appeared in the collection of poems published along with William Wordsworth titled Lyrical Ballads. The collection was published in 1798. So this is a lyrical ballad, a poem which is written in the form and style of a folk ballad, usually written by an anonymous author. So it's a narrative song poem, usually relating a single dramatic incident or story in a form that is suitable for singing or rhythmical chanting. The title character, that is the ancient mariner, detains one of 3 young men who are on their way to a wedding feast. And this young man is mesmerized into listening to the narration of the ancient mariner. And the narration involves his slaughter of an albatross, the death of all his fellow sailors, his suffering, and his eventual redemption. So the poem is about the ancient mariner's ship which sailed past the equator and was driven further south by storms to the cold regions towards the South Pole. From there, the ship sailed back to tropical latitude of the Pacific Ocean, and the poem details how the ancient mariner very cruelly killed a seabird which had actually been of great help to them, an albatross, after the death of which he and his fellow sailors were followed by many and strange distresses. And finally, the poem details how he came back to his own country after much suffering and loss. So the poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, it begins with an introduction of the ancient mariner who is identified with strange and glittering eye. He stops one of three wedding guests who are walking towards a celebration of a wedding. So the mariner stops one young man to tell him the story of a ship. He does not begin with any introduction but just drives straight into his tale. The wedding guest is terrified and tries to make efforts to leave, but the mariner continues to speak, holding him captive with his eyes and voice. So the mariner's story begins with the ship leaving harbor to sail southward, but they are blown further south towards the South Pole by a tremendous storm. And the crew are awed as they encounter mist, snow, cold, and giant glaciers. So, as they find themselves stuck in the middle of the Antarctic, an albatross suddenly appears, seemingly out of nowhere, because the sailors had not been able to find any life around them. And the arrival of the albatross is seen as a good omen. And after the arrival of the bird,